Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are. My name is Chigozie George. I'm excited to welcome you to the Saturday conversation with Chigozie George. It's the standout conversation with Chigozie George, and I'm excited to be your host one more time. For those of you that have been following us, I know you must have learned a lot. You've had a lot of wonderful time with us, and it's always a beautiful, beautiful moment with you every Saturday. And like I always say, get a cup of coffee, get a cup of tea, whatever it is that you like to drink. It's time for your wonderful favorite conversation in the morning. So I know some of you are going to bed, some of you it's afternoon, some of you it's evening. So if you're on the road, if you're driving, or you're in the kitchen making something, just sit back and relax. It's going to be a very, very wonderful conversation with us this morning. If you're joining on Facebook, if you're joining on Instagram, I'm excited to be with you. Don't forget to ask your questions, and we'll do our best to give responses to them in due time. Thank you so much for joining me one more time. I have an amazing guest today. I know that you are superbly going to be wild and you have a lot to learn. You have a lot to draw out from today's conversation. And I don't know. I know you got a lot to learn. So I just want you one more time to sit back. I'm gonna give him a short while. I'm gonna give him a couple of minutes to introduce himself and tell you more about him. But what most of you need to know in advance is my uncle. He's a big brother, and I thank God that we're from the same family, but his wisdom and knowledge is something that is you all need to draw from. So I'm excited to bring him to the conversation today. So welcome so much, Mazi Victor Ahoronye. Thank you so much, there, sir. Let me
Thank,
start with first of all greeting you as an Ngwa man, so that in case you don't know, I'm from Abia State. Most of you, I'm from Abia State. I'm an Ngwa man. So let me greet Mazi with De Mazi.
de
Now,
na wafọ
Kanka,
kamara
Davidi.
pewarachi.
Yes. So let's get that. Biko, introduce yourself to our guests and let's get into the conversation today.
First of all, let me thank you for the opportunity to be in your studio and also have the privilege to also address your audience. And I followed you for some time now, and I can tell that your program is very enriching, and the guests you bring to your studio and talk show, they're quality individuals. They have so much to offer. And I know that a lot of people must have benefited from this, and I believe that even in the years to come, some of these archives will serve other generations. So that being said, my name is Victor Ahoronya. I usually go by Maze. Um, excuse me. And again, like he said, I'm from Isialam South and currently live in Philadelphia in the United States. So been here for about 2 decades now. Married with four beautiful children. And also, I have the awesome privilege to lead the foremost Ungwa cultural organization known as NAWSA, the Ungwa National Association USA. And we have branches all over the United States. And also, we have a branch in Canada. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Um, and I happen to be the leader of this premier organization that is holding Ndengwa in diaspora. NAWSA is an association that have been there for over 30 years
Oh,
and is one of the organizations that is just the envy of every organization of any Nigerian that you can ever think of. Most times you hear a lot of organizations going to court and doing a lot of things, but we have stick together for over 30 years. So it's something to be proud of. So, and again, I have the awesome privilege to lead this organization. This is my third year. This is my fourth year, as a matter of fact. So this year will be my last year. And again, professionally, I work with a pharmaceutical company and also healthcare. So I just come with a lot of experience, leadership, healthcare, and the administration. So on the I look forward to our moment here today, and every other thing that comes, we just take it by piece by piece. Thank you.
thank you so much. Thank you so much. Like I said, it's a lot of experience that he comes with. And I know that everyone um, we've got a lot to gain from your well of experience and knowledge. So I really want to thank you for taking our time to have this conversation. I know it's about 8:30, 8:45 a.m. in the morning, there, if I'm correct, and you've made our time to be with us this Saturday morning here in Izmir, Turkey. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I hope that before your tenure finishes, I and my wife can attend one of the user conferences in the US. I look forward to it. Let's quickly get into it because I know our audience are always eager to get into the whole conversation. I have seen, I've followed you and I've heard a lot, before we came to maturity, we've heard a lot about you and how you have been able to get to where you are, the challenges and the obstacles and everything, you know, moving from Nigeria to live in diaspora and be able to do well despite all the challenges. So I want to start with, how difficult has it been for you to get to where you are, coming from where you came from and getting to where you are right now?
Well, just like they say that every journey begins with a step. So first of all, I'm privileged that when I came to the US, it was my sister and the husband that helped me. So I'm not just one of those people that maybe sold their house or land or anything. So I'm just privileged and I'm blessed. So that's how I got to the US in the first place. So I'm not just gonna say, oh, there's so much rigorous steps that I took to get here. So I
Mhm,
came as a student when I arrived here, and then with time finished my education and naturalized. And again, everything in life is just you must have a purpose. So before I even left the country, I said to myself, any day I'm ready to marry, first of all, I'll marry an Ngwa girl,
mhm,
and either here or I go home, but it has to be. And I know sometimes when I say that, I might sound a little kind of people like kind of so much. Some may say it's tribalistic, some, but anything in life you just have to define it. You know, when you define it, it's easy to achieve. So
mhm,
for me, I have a purpose and I define it. And just like in the war, you have to set a parameter, where your target is. So when I made that decision, it guided me. So it wasn't difficult for me to make a choice of a life partner because I knew where it would come from. So
mhm,
when I was ready, I began the search and I knew where I was going. So that's how I went home in 2009 and got married. And the marriage, we've been blessed with 4 children, 2 boys, 2 girls, and we're still kicking it. So, and overall, like I said, I came as a student. It wasn't easy because as an international student, you pay out of pocket, and your tuition is a little different from the residents. So,
mhm,
but for one that came from where we came from, is all about survival. You know
mhm,
that you have left the shore, and nobody wants to hear excuses from you why you did not succeed,
mhm,
and
mhm,
nobody wants to hear how the water was so high you couldn't swim. So all you
mhm,
have to do is just adapt. That's this thing my dad used to say when I was growing up. He say adapt or perish. So
mhm.
and so those things kind of like got into me. So when I arrived here, I knew that there's no excuse for me to disappoint myself or anybody, but I have to whatever it takes that is legal and legitimate to succeed, that I have to do it. And looking back in retrospect, and I could say that it's been a journey, and I'm so grateful about every part of it. And those dreams and goals, day by day, is keep coming through.
I'm almost gonna say that some of the words you've used are consistent with the words I use when I have conversations with people, when I talk with people at my workplace, when I talk to people around me. I say I must do something legal and legitimate. Everything to survive, everything to come out victorious, everything to come out, good on the other good side, that is legitimate, that is legal. That's what I'm going to do. When you tell your story, it sounds like when people say the American dream, but what I hear, it's not just the American. I hear the Nigerian dream. You have just, how would I put it? You have put in words the Nigerian man, the Nigerian person, that when we get out anywhere, we always tell ourselves either we adapt or we perish. And Nigerians, Africans, we always find a way to adapt. We always find a way to do legal things, legitimate businesses, to survive. There are a few persons who do illegitimate stuffs, but that doesn't outnumber the number of hardworking Nigerians, the number of hardworking Africans that have legitimately survived. I want to quickly, follow up on what you have just said. How is it for other people around you who might not have the privilege of having someone that was there for them to pick them up and all of that? You said was your sister and the husband. I'm sure you've in the association you've come across people who had war stories. How did they go through it? What was their challenges, and how did you maybe you personally help them or other persons to survive?
Um, Individual experience are very unique to people, and just like you asked, I've seen friends that are here in the past that did not have any relative here in America. But one good thing about the African or Nigerian or the Igbo tribe or some other
Mm-hmm.
tribes in Nigeria is we have a good network. And a network is such that if you open up, there's somebody that will always have some kind of information that you need. Or there's somebody there that must have gone through the process that will have already made information so that you don't have to go
Hmm.
through the whole process again. So, but the problem sometimes with some people is that they're not open up. When they open up, they kind of like truncate their stories. So
Hmm.
it might be difficult to, kind of like discern what they actually need. So, but
Hmm.
if you're open and you would just see somebody, like here, there's a lot of Nigerian churches that if you're a believer or if you're a Christian, if you associate with them, you see somebody in your faith that will always lead a helping hand. So the
Hmm.
thing is this though, I always tell people in this life, living in isolation is dangerous because we will
Hmm.
always need each other. Even God Himself during creation, He said, "Come, let us reason together." So there is always need for people to come together. There is always need for people to congregate, either in your community or in your church, because when you do that, there's possibility of getting information. Because I remember when we were in college, in Nnamdi Azikiwe University, we always say that information brings transformation. And
Hmm.
again, the best way to inspire quick is when you're not inspired, you know. So when you come around people, that has similarity with you, there's always a way you get information. So for people,
Hmm.
that's living in isolation, that's the people it becomes so more difficult for them to transition. But if
Hmm.
you're the type that use your social skill and network with other people, definitely
Hmm.
some information you can get. There's a piece of information you can get today that which that will help you to avoid a journey of 3, 4, 5 days.
Yeah.
One piece of information that can transform you, that can revolutionize, that can just change your story. Just an
Yeah.
information. So information
Yeah.
is very powerful for people that kind of like get stuck where they were. It's just because they did not ask or they weren't with the right people. And but other than that, I strongly believe that those of us that didn't have maybe family members, as long as they network well and with the right group with the right information, because also you can make a mistake of networking with people that their vision, their goals are skewed. They can take you off your track.
That is so true. You said about three things that I really find very interesting. You've talked about information and connection. Then you've talked about the impact of isolation. You know, I think it was in 2013 I wrote a book called People on the Way of Destiny, and one of the key things that I always remember that I said in that book was nothing great survives alone. Nothing great survives alone. We need people. So you have just simply said that if you have connection, connection will produce information, and that information will help you transition faster in any environment. That's what. But I think most people have this prejudice in their mind, and there's so much painting of Nigerians in a negative path, painting of Africans in a negative path, that when people come abroad, when people get into diaspora, they feel like don't trust anybody. Don't trust anybody. But I tell people, you sit in the plane and you don't know the pilot. You don't know the whoever is in the cockpit there. But you sit in the plane and you relax and you believe that if flight from Nigeria to Australia that is almost more than 24 hours or so, that you are safe. I don't know how people say don't trust anybody, but you sit in a plane for 6, 7 hours and you believe that you are going to be fine. So I'm just so excited that you tell us that there's no need to try to be isolated. Connect with people, you get information, and your transition wherever in any walks of life is going to happen. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm really, really happy that you said that. I want to quickly mention something that how do people how do you react with all the negative reports, negative vibes that is always thrown at Nigerians and Africans? It's not only in the US, it's not only, it's even here in Turkey. For example, I was just out with my wife. We were coming, that's why we came in late. And there's a story of something happened in another city in Turkey, and then someone saw us at the shopping mall and was using that on us. It was my wife felt so bad and she was talking to my wife about it. So how do you take that, and how do you help people, or how can people just ignore those negative vibes, negative reports about this Africans are this, when people say Africans are Nigerians are massively corrupt and all of those things? How do you help people? How did you survive such? Because I know you might have experienced it.
That's a really good question. And also for me, being a leader that represent over 1,000 plus Nigerians, Igbos, Ngwa, it becomes even more pertinent for
Mm-hmm.
me to be aware of that. So here's what I do, and here's what I say. Everybody that comes in contact with me, I try to make an impression of integrity, of respect, not just respect for the person, but for the rule of law
Mm-hmm.
and due process, so that the person himself will say, "What manner of man is this?"
Good.
Then, when we begin to dive into it, and I say, "I'm Nigerian,"
Hmm.
and sometimes I've heard this a couple times. They say, "Oh, you're not just like an average Nigerian." And I was like, "What's an average Nigerian looks like?" Oh.
Mm-hmm.
So every day I try to transact with people in a way that, even though they have notions that are negative prior to coming in contact with me, that after my dealing and transaction with them, they'll have a different testimony, because that's the only way. Because you can say all you want to defend your people, your culture, with words of the mouth, but if your action is not consistent to those preaching, you're just preaching to the choir, because
Mm-hmm.
there's no validity in it. Because
Mm-hmm.
if that person cannot trust you, if you can be honest in transaction with the same person that has no, that maybe perhaps didn't even know you're a Nigerian, and have
Mm-hmm.
some kind of negative, experience, because we're all entitled to our experiences,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we are expert in our experiences. So if
Mm-hmm.
I touch a water and it's hot, and I say, "Oh, it's hot," you can't tell me, "Oh, it's not that hot." First of all, it's my skin, it's my hand, it's my experience.
Mm-hmm.
Teach me how hard it is, because I was the one that felt it. So when
Mm-hmm.
people begin to talk about Nigerian, the negativity, or whoever, they're entitled to their experiences, they're entitled to their truths.
Mm-hmm.
So for you to disabuse that is from your own action that will portray us in a good light. And
Mm-hmm.
now they will say, "Oh, I didn't even know Saul is one of the prophets. I didn't know there are someone that stands out, in
Mm-hmm.
Nigeria, that can be so honest." Then now you have that moral authority to say there are millions of us like this. It's just that perhaps you were unfortunate to meet the few bad apples among us. So that's
Mm-hmm.
how I address that issue. I kind of like, say to myself, if I deal with you, even in leadership, even those that I serve with, as a national president, I always tell people that, hey, I try to make sure that my yeah is my yeah, my no is my no. If I
Mm-hmm.
don't like it, I would just tell you I don't like it. And if
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna do it, I would just tell you. So don't even bother asking me twice, because I hardly change. I even say it to my wife. If she asks me, "Does this dress looks good?" I say yes. And if she asking me again, I say I've answered the question. I don't need to. Before I answer it, I thought through it, and I just know that in my heart, it is. So there's nothing like any another question, a second guess about it. So
Hmm.
and that's how I try to deal with that issue with our the negativities and also the stereotypes about Nigerian. How some always say they're fraudulent, they're this, they're that. So when you live a life that is consistent with what is should be the right way, then you have permit me to quote the scripture that says you can punish every disobedience when your obedience is complete. So you
Hmm.
cannot defend what is wrong when you're doing what is wrong.
That is true. Most people always forget that there is need for us to make good impression before we make introductions of ourselves. It doesn't matter who you say you are. What matters is what you do. So even if you're trying to correct and say this stereotyping of Nigerian is not good, people are watching to see what you do. That's why I always tell people in my workplace. I've had a couple of Nigerians that work under me in my workplace, and I'm constantly saying to them, listen, don't forget who we are. Don't forget what people think we are. It's very important. We know who we are, but we also know what people think we are. And the onus is on us to try to say, what you think we are is not who we are. This is who we are. But people always forget that, and forget that there's need for us to make a very good impression, even without just with our actions alone. So thank you so much. I want to quickly get into the conversation more. You've worked for a long time, and you've got four beautiful children. You got wife. You have the organization you're running, and I know you have other commitments as well. One of the things that I always find challenging in this generation is work life balance. You see, they've got their work going on fine, but the family's not going fine. You see some people, they've got work going on fine, but the kids, there's no time for the kids. The kids are wayward. They have got the money, but the kids are not there. You got either emotionally, they're trying to juggle all of these things, and finally you see them emotionally breaking down every time from time to time. Just yesterday, one of the African doctors here was telling me that I think in the night shift there were so many people. You observe so many young people taking pills in attempt to commit suicide. People are overwhelmed, and it's not only here; it's all over the world. People are really overwhelmed. How do you cope, or do you manage your work-life balance? How do you do it?
Very, very good question. And it, it, the whole thing I say to myself and those that are around me is value is very, very important. And the foundation is also good. That's why even the script talks about if the foundation be destroyed, foundation is very good. And again, if you looked at the people, like when the Egyptians were coming out from I'm sorry, when the Israelis was coming out from the Egyptians, when they asked Aaron, make us a god, what Aaron could remember was the golden calf, and that's to say, here is your god when he took out their earrings. So it's always important, even now that we are parents, to also create this value to tell our children. And I'm privileged that my dad is that type that, may God rest his soul. He was a police officer for 35 years. He worked and retired and even get another job after. But one thing that I know that my dad did for us that also helped me as a father and as a husband is he was present. Even
Hmm.
when he used to serve
Hmm.
in faraway Jos, he comes home every other weekend you
Hmm.
know so as a parent, you have to be present. As a husband, you have to be present, and present in the sense that you know make sure that you create some time. We have 24 hours in a day. Even again, when you talk about work-life balance, for me, that's where value comes in.
Hmm.
There's some job that I cannot accept.
Hmm.
Not because I don't want to accept them, because I know that if I accept them, it will be detrimental to my family.
Hmm.
And what I mean by some of them might be curious about what do you mean by there's some jobs you cannot take. If I get a job to go to California, I live in Pennsylvania, to go to California to be offshore for 6 months and come back, you know, and when I have alternative, I can work maybe and make maybe $10,000 less and be with my kids and be with my family. I'd rather take the one that I'll make 10,000 less than to go the one that I'll make maybe 20,000 more. But by the
Mhm.
end of the day, I'll miss my kids' games. I'll miss their, the
Mhm.
appointments. Sometimes I just go with my wife to the appointment. Like today, after this, well, they're going for a swimming lesson. I'm going with them, with my wife. Not that she cannot take them by herself, but I volunteer, say I want to go with you guys. So and
Mhm.
things like that. So and the kids, because they know I'm coming, they even extra happy. So these
Mhm.
are the experiences you create, and if they learn, even when they have their own children tomorrow, they will always remember. My dad is always there
Mhm.
for my licensing,
Mhm.
he's always there for my games, he's always there. Just like I'm making reference to my own father. So,
Mhm.
and that's why sometimes it looks like it's a generational curse in the sense that if you happen to have, parent that never cared, they never present. So,
Mhm.
because you can't give what you don't have.
True.
Sometimes what happens to a lot of families, there is a lot of breakdown is some of us or some people while growing up, all they see was just they never experienced love. See, their
Mhm.
parents never told them, I love you. They didn't even know what it means to say to somebody,
Yeah.
I love you. Some parents never even use those phrases. So the kids never even heard that from their parents. And that's why sometimes people say African parents are so rigid and so this, you know. Like my own dad, when I wake up in the morning, he sees me first, he say, Victor, good morning. You know, and that's just my dad for you. So he will greet you himself. He wouldn't even wait for you. But some parents will even smack you in the head and say, didn't you see me here? But my dad
Mhm.
will wake up and say, good morning, Dad, good morning. And you yourself, you feel ashamed to say, you just kind of like, so,
Mhm.
that's the kind of, parent that I have. So, and also it affects me today in a positive way in the sense that there are things that, the upbringing, the nurturing helps a lot. So
Mhm.
work-life balance is about value, what can give and what you can, give in place of, like, sometimes there was one of my friends that works night shift. They don't have any little kid in the house. I say, why are you working night shift? You don't want to be in the home with your wife? They say, oh, I like night shift. I say, for me, it's not what you like. I want to be in bed at night, even though
Mhm.
nothing's going on. I just want to have that presence in the bed with my wife at night. I say it
Mhm.
helps, you know. So you can just be at work 5 days a week on night shift, and your wife is working 7 to 3, and she's home all night by herself. And she'll be thinking about something, you'll be thinking about different things and things like that. So sometimes it's all about what is important to you.
I think one of the things I've observed is we live in a money driven society and not a value driven society. I think that's one of the problems. And I mean, no disrespect to Western life and Western culture and all of those things, but I do think that this money driven society is more in the Western culture. You have everything is about, there's so much going on with, if you don't pay your bills, if you don't pay your mortgage, if you don't, so people, and then there's this life that is painted on the social media, painted in the media everywhere, where you think that everybody's life is better than yours, so you have to constantly compete with compete with everyone around you. This oftentimes makes people forget the values that they were built with, the value that they were trained with. So we find it difficult to pass those values to people. But I really agree with you when you say don't accept jobs that is against your principle, don't accept jobs that are against your values. I personally, but I've been in Turkey for 10 years plus now. I've never worked on a Sunday, even after in the evening. Never. I've maybe only once I've done a favor to somebody to work on Friday once in the evening times. Even someone, I remember a particular time someone offered me a really good amount of money to do something on Friday and Sunday. And I said I can't. And the person said was like, why? I said, I get burnt out. I get burnt out during the week. On Sundays, even okay, yeah, I'll go to church, but I want to come home and relax and replenish myself and get myself together for the next week. But people don't understand that jobs against our principles, against our values, end up destroying the everything we're working for. So I really appreciate when you say that you don't do things that are against your principles, you don't do things that are against your values. And I thank God that you picked that out, like you said, you picked that from your dad. I remember going out with church once, and I was very young, I think I came from Lagos to visit Papa, and Papa was like, I think it was at the backyard. He was cutting a tree, and he succeeded after he wanted to cut it down. I said, ah, that's my father, that's my dad. So he looked at me. So it was like, it's like those things you say that, for us, there are certain values that we picked up. Even now, we see them better. But our parents, the little that they could do for us, they did it with the best understanding. But I think, and I agree with you, it's time for us also to shape our own principles and values and transfer them to our children. So thank you so much for that. I want to quickly ask, even though I'm not sure I plan to ask this question. I was having a conversation with the young boys in my house yesterday, and there is this still, and I couldn't believe that there's still young people with that thoughts, where people still believe, where young boys still believe that men don't belong to the kitchen, men don't go to the kitchen. I was wowed. Like, are there people who still have that? How do you manage with household work and chores and all of that with your wife? You know, how do you say, okay, I'm working, my wife's gonna be in the kitchen, or my wife is gonna go to work and come back and do the cooking and all those things?
Good question. Well, as a leader, one of the things I've learned over the years as a leader is that it's not I in a team. My wife and I were a team,
Good.
and that's how we do it. And when you understand that you and your partner, your team, all the goal is to get it done, no matter
Mm-hmm.
who gets it done, no matter how it's get done. It's just the goal is to get it done. Because at the
Good.
end of the day, when it's get done and get done rightly, both of you will have rest. Both
Mm-hmm.
of you will feel that sense of accomplishment.
Mm-hmm.
Both of you, like in the morning, sometimes like I work, remotely. I work, 8 to 4 hour on time from home Monday through Friday. But also I have a second job sometimes, the healthcare. I go to hospital sometimes Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday after my regular job. So when I do that, I usually come home like around midnight. So, but that does not stop me from my son gets up in the morning, and go to school. And he gets up at 5:30 in the morning. So mind you, when I get him like between 12 and 1 in the morning, I gotta get up again at 5:30 or before 5:30 a.m. to get him shower and everything and get him ready and put him in the bus by 6:02. So and that's just the routine every day. So
Wow.
and my little boy too likes me to give him a shower. So
Wow.
he's 6. So and also, it's part of the routine. So and here's the thing, is a family unit. So
Mm-hmm.
and again, it all starts from that value we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
This whole idea, this is for a woman, this is for a man. It's
Mm-hmm.
nothing like that in a family that wants to succeed, because you two have to help each other. So for
Mm-hmm.
us, there's nothing. There's no if sometimes, like me, I like to clean the refrigerators and the microwave. It's just my thing. So
Mm-hmm.
even when it's somehow dirty, my wife is just like, "Oh wow, he's an expert on that one." So
Mm-hmm.
things like that. So there's nothing like, because at the end of the day, you want yourself to succeed. You want you both of you to succeed. You want to be a happy and stronger, unit as a family. And also your kids are watching you. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the whole thing. You're building an image. You're building, a mental image of how, like I always make reference to my dad, how he was there and how he was present. So whatever we do as parents, some of those boys thinking about that way, probably perhaps what they heard, but sometimes, they will unlearn. I was listening to one of your guests was talking about learning and unlearn. One of the time, when jungle matures, like we always say, they will unlearn. Because some people, that's how they lost their first marriages.
Mm-hmm.
Their beautiful wife or beautiful person in their life, because they were being too rigid. Then when they went for a rematch, then now they will teach themselves and say, you know
Mm-hmm.
what, my
Mm-hmm.
heart will compromise or will be, flexible. So
Mm-hmm.
things like that. So for
Great.
me, there's no I in a team.
You just mentioned leadership, and I want to quickly move into that quickly. I'm really interested in leadership. I'm always interested in management and those kind of stuffs. I've had a couple of leaders and managers on the show, and we've talked a lot on that. I want to get your perspective on what you would define as leadership. You are in leadership. You've been in leadership. You work with leaders. What would you define as leadership?
My definition of leadership is I draw this, inspiration from the scripture. It says, he that wants to be the greatest amongst you, must be the least or the servant. So if you're a leader, you know that your job is to serve. And when you have that at the back of your mind, you cut down your expectations. You're not there to be worshipped. You're not there for people to sing your praises and things like that. Your goal is just to make sure that you serve, and those you're serving, you serve them with the right heart. Because at the end of the day, what I tell people in leadership is that why so many leaders are burnt and disappointed is the reason behind what you're doing.
Mm-hmm,
If you're there to serve and know what service is all about, then you won't have a problem. Even when people do not appreciate what you do, you're not doing it for them to clap their hands. You're
mm-hmm,
doing it for because you're driven to lead. And you also human management is the hardest thing to manage. It's easy to
mm-hmm,
manage materials, manage non-inanimate objects, but human beings, they will talk back, they will respond. You move them this way, they say, no, 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 that's not where I want to move. So and as a leader, I try to make sure that I have the right team and I have the right mindset. That's the thing. If you have the right mindset, you build your team, and you don't build your team because you just want people that would agree 100% to what you say. You build
mm-hmm,
an intelligence team, people that can question your decision, but at the same time, you offer what is superior. You always be open to say, hey, this is why I think we should go this route. This is why I think that this is the best option. And also you give them, like I don't believe in micromanagement as a leader. I have a lot of people under me that I work with. So for me, I always like have a lot of committees that I created, and I have people that cheers. I tell them, I say, think outside the box, be creative, be innovative. Just let me know what you're doing. I just want to be carried along, but at the same time, I want to know the reason behind some of the ideas, and let me see it in the light of what is up ethical and what
mm-hmm,
is best for us. So that's why even those days in economics, we
mm-hmm,
learn scale of preference, opportunity cost, and things like that. So when you look at it, for me as a leader, there's always going to be transaction. There's always going to
mm-hmm,
be profit, and a profit in the sense that profit is not just monetarily or finance. Profit in the sense that if you're leading, like now, have this privilege to be the national president for about 4 years now. So now, when you take the inventory of where the association were financially, or so civic engagement and everything, and social stories, and see where are we now after almost 4 years. So that is how, and the people and the things we've been able to accomplish. So this is how I look at it as a leader, because it's very, very important for you to know why you're going into leadership.
mm-hmm,
If you know and you have the right mindset, build the right people, not people that would advise you like what we call the Ahithophel counsel,
mm-hmm,
then you'll be able to make sure that at the end of the day, you're not there to make money to gain fame. You're there to serve. But when you serve right, history will charge you fairly.
I want to quickly, in continuation with the discussions around leadership. You know, I have keen interest in leadership in Nigeria, leadership across Africa. I honestly say to myself, I'm very proud to be an African. In fact, I count myself as a Pan Africanist, and I'm hoping Africa will rise to the center of of things. African countries will take their rightful place in the global scheme of things. But until then, what do you think that African leaders are not doing right? What do you think Nigerian leaders are not doing right? I did read somewhere that one of the prime ministers in the UK sometime or said that the money that had been taken out of Nigeria in terms of corruption if it's taken out of the UK as a country since 1960 something till this moment, that the UK will no longer exist. That is corruption, actually. So what our leaders, what are we not getting right? Why is Nigeria not being fixed? Why are we going back? Why does it seem like we're going back? We're making progress, I will say, but it's a snail progress. Why?
Well, when you talk about the African leadership, or and the Nigerian leadership as a whole, um, sometimes it breaks one's heart if you understand leadership. Because first of all, I've come in terms to know that the problem with most of our leaders is they don't even know why they're there. You
Mhm,
know, they have no clue. They might speak good English, but they don't know. Because, like I say, leadership is to serve and to serve the people. When you have a federal allocation to a particular people and you have the mind to take that money in your bank and use it for something else, and the same day, at the same time, you just buy some peanut just to appease those people. There's some things that you just do. It's just like, it's morally, ethically wrong. And again,
mhm,
we have this leadership in Nigeria that is so selfish. If you don't praise them, if you don't sing their praises, you are an enemy. So the objectivity is what is lacking in our leadership. you know
mhm,
so the objectivity is what is lacking in our leadership, and some of the people that happen to be there did not even do their homework. So
mhm,
for them, they see it as a career.
mhm,
Before they get into the leadership, they've mapped out how many cars they want to buy, how many
mhm,
houses, how many lands, and things like that. So that mindset of let me solve, let me better the affairs of the people that I represent, it's not even there. And
mhm,
again, most of our leaders, they don't even see Nigeria or Igbo land as their home, because if you do see that, I don't know why you would transfer billions to a foreign bank, and those banks in the foreign land use those banks and give to their people for businesses, and they developed their own land. And
Yes.
then, if you just like, if you know this is your father's house, you're not going to be urinating in the living room, because
Yeah.
definitely it's going to
Mm,
sink. So for some of our leaders, if not all of them, even the ones that from my own state, even the ones from my own local government, they sometimes, like, I remember our the Umar, local government, for so many
mhm,
years, till this very recent time, is going through renovation. It was so dilapidated, and you
mm,
ask yourself, does a human being comes here every day and report to work? So, and we have no sense of decency. We enjoy good things outside, but we cannot recreate those things in our own land. So, and I believe that it has to this, and it's getting worse every day. And you would think that some people in our generation will even have this shift, but it seems like it's getting worse, because everyone that gets there think that, hey, nobody's patriotic. Nobody even wants to tell the truth. If you tell them the truth, they get angry with you. If you give them an objective evaluation, they get angry. But I still did not give hope on that someday, at some point, they will get it right. It might not be in our generation, but a generation will come that will say enough is enough. Because just like you, I'm so much interested in the leadership of Africa, because some of the things that we are scrambling in other countries, we can have them in thousand folds because of the resources we have.
true.
And I tell people that it starts from brick by brick, block by block, from each local government, from each council. But it's just that sometimes we don't see those places as our home, because if we do, the road that we use every day, the road that the governors, the commissioners use every day, they cannot even help to grade the road, they use every day. Their own parents, their own uncles, their own siblings, their own cousins, and everything. So if you call that place your home, there should be a different style of leadership, a different attitude, and a way to deliver on the promise.
It is, there's something you said here. When you look at Turkey, there is so much collective patriotism for the nation, but I see that it's so lacking in our Nigerian system. When you see other countries have been so patriotic about their nation, those in my last conversation, I had a conversation with presidents of Nigerians in diaspora, Europe, Turkey chapter here. And one of the things he said, when people leave Nigeria, he said, there's no problem with you living abroad. There's no problem with it. But the problem is you living abroad and telling yourself, I'm never going to go back home. I have nothing to do with that country. I've seen people who, once they get the passport of another country, they post and say, I'm not a Nigerian anymore. I am this. But you never see a Japanese person, you never see an Asian do that. An Asian is happy to have the American passport, but he tells you, I'm Korean. A Chinese is happy to have that American passport. He tells you, I am a Chinese person. A Turkish person is happy to have the German passport, but he tells you, I am Turkish. They understand these are just for purposes and a means to an end, but they never deny who they are. But we as a people, we are so unpatriotic. A friend of mine was telling me that he was building for a very, I wouldn't mention name, re- the person who has political status in the country, and he was part of the people building this person's structure. And he says, for miles away from his house, everybody around him were poor. There's no good house. There's no good road, but he builds a massive house in that place. The roads are terrible and in a terrible state. How do you say you have conscience to do that? I honestly want to join you and say, if all of us, those home and abroad, will learn to build and inculcate in our kids patriotism, I think very soon we will begin to see the changes that we are looking for, we are seeking for. I want to quickly take one more question because our time is fast exhausted. I know you've got a lot to do this morning in your hand. So, speaking about African countries and the whole thing that is happening, I'm impressed by the story of Air Peace that has just begun operational flights to I think to UK. They're working in the US and all of those things. I'm really impressed with that. And I saw that at a point in time, the flight ticket from UK to Nigeria, to and fro, was up to 5 million to and fro. And this is the same flight. It's about 6 hours flight, and 6 hours, and it is 4 hours from UK, from London to Izmir, where I live. But the flight ticket to and fro sometimes is about 300 euros, 400 euros, which is not up to 600,000 naira. I don't understand how that happens. But then Airpiece comes into play and suddenly brings the flight to 1 point something. How can the government support such companies? What can our leadership do? Because if AP succeeds, we'll have other companies that will be willing to become patriotic companies representing Nigeria. What do you think the leadership of our country, what do you think the president, the minister of aviation, everyone involved can do?
Well, the question is simple, but the answer is hard. You know, we have leadership that doesn't think about the people. They don't care about the people. It's just obvious because when you see the policy they make, and if you see because they can afford it, so it doesn't matter. You know, because they can afford it. If you see the senators and the House of Reps and the remunerations they get, the newspaper allowances and things like that is very outrageous. Whereas the minimum wage is how much? The minimum wage of an average Nigerian cannot even afford him a flight ticket from Akwa Ibom to Port Harcourt.
Mhm.
So what I think is this though, and it calls for this patriotism we are talking about. If a president, a governor sees, if the president of Nigeria sees Nigeria as one nation, one body, knowing that what affects somebody in Ondo affects somebody in Abia, what affects somebody in Kano, if Kano is not in peace, it would affect the commerce, the interstate commerce,
Mhm.
you know. And if the governor of Imo State sees everybody within all the local government in Imo State as one person, if the
Mhm.
governor of Abia State sees everybody in Abia State as an Abian, regardless of what they look like, what party they belong. They say, I am doing this for my state.
Mm-hmm.
Because if my state succeeds, everybody in the state succeeds. So, and that way, just like Dr. Onyema, Chief Onyema, the AP's owner,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to see it as an Igbo man. This is
Mm-hmm.
an enterprise
True.
that helps every Nigerian.
Mm-hmm.
When it was 5 million from Lagos to London, they weren't ask you if it's an Igbo man's, money or Yoruba or whatever. Everybody was
Mm-hmm.
paying it.
Yeah.
Everybody that was taking that out was paying it. It was affecting everybody's economy. So if the government understand that competition brings down cost, is because that APs came in. Now there is a competition, and there's
Mm-hmm.
always to have indigenous business, indigenous airline, indigenous, because now your own people can patronize because like Nigeria, we don't manufacture anything, but we consume more than any country in the world. We
Yeah.
consume gasoline, we consume everything. Nigeria drinks the highest, the most expensive liquor in the world,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't produce nothing. So, a leadership, just like the former presidential candidate talks about, we have to move from consumption to manufacturing. I think that's what every leader, regardless of party somebody belongs or things like that, every leader in Nigeria, from the local government to up, should be thinking about how do we encourage our farmers to produce more? How do we encourage people that get these things out? Because if people in the local area, like our own aside, we produce gari and things like that, it is a way to to get seedlings for these farmers to help them fight the pest things that ravages their farm, things like that. If there is a way the government can help them, if the way the government can subsidize the fertilizer and things like that, I bet you there will be more food. And when there is food, or it also cut down on crimes and all
Mm-hmm.
these truancies and nonchalances
Mm-hmm.
from the young people. So the government, I believe, for Nigeria to work, for Abia State to work, for Imo State to work, for any place to work, those at the top has to think in uniformity and
Mm-hmm.
and holistically. How can we make sure that the people get what, at least what they need? So the difference between talking Nigeria or US and Nigeria is just that the leaders, they want to make a change.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they just want to make a change. They just want to radically change the situation. They think about mitigation. If somebody dies on the road because of pothole, in
Mm-hmm.
the next 24 hours, something's done about it. You
Yeah.
know, then our own, if something like this happened, they start blaming the KK driver, blaming blaming the person,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not a blame game. So we should start fixing things or thinking about how to get, to avoid, instead of like, I'm also trained in public health. So we talk about prevention and health promotion. You don't wait for you to get obese to be diagnosed, with diabetes, for you to know that you should cut down on your sugars and
Mm-hmm.
all those sweet stuff.
Mm-hmm. I want to say thank you so much. It's been wonderful, wonderful conversation with you. I know we've taken so much of your time, and I'm really grateful. I do not know how to say it, but I've learned a lot, and I hope everyone watching today. It's just my personal call, leveraging on what he has said today. I want to say, whether you are in diaspora, whether you are in Nigeria, whatever part you are, it's time for us to have collective patriotism, collective belief in the country, just like he has said. We can make things work, whether you are a Ghanaian, whether you're a Liberian, whether you're a South African, whether you're a Nigerian, wherever you are as African around the world, we can make things work. And I know that as we continue to work together, I hope that all of us will see the Nigeria that we're looking for, the Ghana we're looking for, the South Africa we're looking for, and the Africa that we're looking for. I'm Chigozie George, and I'm happy to have had Mazi Victor and Ronye today as a guest. Mazi, just before you go, sir, any last word on what you think personally will be your suggestion to anyone who say, I want to have personal success in my life? What tips would you give to them?
Well, my final thought would be, nothing in life is permanent. Power is transient. And when you have done everything in this life, just know that you're here as a sojourner. And when you have that in mind, that just like we go to work, by 8 hours you're clocking out. So it also makes you to hurry up to get things done. And if you know that your time on earth is not permanent, then you work while it is day, because night will come when no man will work again.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Hurry up, get to work because night will come when no one will work. That's the final words from Master Victor Hearing. Thank you so much, Day. I'm really glad that you were here with us today. I hope that one day we can have you again on the show. So thank you so much and do have a pleasant weekend. My greetings to the family and thank you so much, sir.